through this class by now, and none of them ever did rotten things, which I appreciate, and please keep it that way. If you guys hack to college, they might not fire me anymore, although I thought they would in the first semester, but anyway, it would be bad, and in case you care, you get an F. But you're going to have a lot worse problems than that. You break the law. So we're going to use Windows and Linux. We're going to use virtual machines. How many people already use virtual machines? That's what I thought. Wonderful. That was also fairly new when I started. Now everybody pretty much knows about them. If you don't know, you got to learn. Virtual machines are wonderful. Anyway, so we'll be doing port scans to find vulnerable systems. We'll be exploiting SQL vulnerabilities and buffer overflow vulnerabilities, writing Trojans, inserting backdoors and rootkits on machines, and talking about how to protect yourself against these things and how to prevent them. So the general pattern of all projects, which are the heart of the course, are you set up a vulnerable system, you attack it and exploit it, and then you harden it and you observe that your attack no longer works. That's the general structure of the project. All right, we're going to cover a little bit of programming, certainly not enough to replace a real programming course, but a little bit of C, HTML, Perl, and Python, because you should know the basics there, because you use it to write scanning tools and attack tools, and it's just easy to automate things that you otherwise have to do manually. We'll do a denial of service attack against a web server. You'll set up your own web server and then bring it down. So you can see what happens there. We'll crack into wireless networks with WEP and WPA. You can get through both of them, although WPA is very secure, and you can only get through it if you choose a foolish password. The only attack I know that works on that is a dictionary attack. WEP is garbage, absolutely worthless, and we'll get through that no matter what password you choose in 5 minutes. Everyone should have known that since 2001, but nobody's got the message yet. Not enough people have got the message. Let me just, since it has come up, let me just point out something. There's a course after this one, the Advanced Ethical Hacking. One of the things these guys did was get a really big antenna in Ward Drive, San Francisco, and we found 3,000 wireless networks, and half of them are using WEP. So the total number of networks in San Francisco that we could find that we couldn't get into in 5 minutes is 23%. That's really despicable, and a lot of these guys are companies doing business, and there's just no excuse for that. That's like having a bank and not bothering to put a lock on the vault, and then say, gosh, who thought the money would get stolen? But it's the way it really is out there, and that's why you need ethical hackers. The world is full of awful security procedures that leave everything wide open for criminals, and manufacturers just lie. They tell you that your BART card is encrypted, they tell you the RFID tag on your passport and your fast track is encrypted, and it's a lie. And it's always easier to just lie about your security than to put security on, and it's the ethical hackers that expose these things. I can't say they're always lies, but they're very often lies. So we'll talk about this. We'll cover the basics of cryptography, and we will do man-in-the-middle attack to crack HTTPS. It is not going to be as spectacular as the one that came out in the news last week. There's a new HTTPS attack, which we don't have the equipment for. They did it with 100 PlayStations, and they actually really cracked it. We're going to crack it with a certificate that does set up a warning on the browser. Most people ignore that warning, but as of last week, you can crack it even with no warning at all if you have a network of 100 PlayStations and about a month to take the MD5 hash. Anyway, all right. So there are 2 textbooks. There's the yellow book, which I made. Somebody got that yellow book? Nobody. Everyone's yellow. There's the yellow book. That's the textbook. And there's also a book of lecture notes, which they have not printed yet in the bookstore, so that's why you have a big, thick handout. This contains the first several projects to get you started. After that, there are lecture notes, which you can buy in the bookstore. You can also just print them off from our webpage, which should be...
We need a book?
Yes. Yeah, on the third page of this, there's my website, sansclass.info. Everything I hand out in class is on that website. It's all free to use, so some people just print it out from the website. It's more convenient for most people to have it bound in the book, but whatever suits you. I really want to make sure that everybody gets off to a good start tonight, because the schedule this semester is hostile. We have 1 meeting, then we have 2 holidays. I won't see you again for 3 weeks, so both the add date and the drop date pass without me getting a chance to see you. And if people walk out of here and they aren't ready to begin, they're going to be 3 weeks behind when I see you again, which is a shame. So I want to make sure everybody can get going. That's why you have such a large pile of junk down there to take home with you. You should have enough there to get you started on several projects. All right. And I've already downloaded this lecture. There's 2 things I want you to fill out here. the one I'd like you to fill out tonight is the student agreement. Sign that thing, because I do have to have, I will harass you until you really sign this, because this says you understand the rules, and especially in this class, where people are much more concerned than usual about use. I want to really have this on file for every student, because I'm teaching you dangerous skills, like I'm teaching you how to shoot a gun or use a chainsaw. If you use it foolishly, you will end up in prison. And they will ask me, what did you do? And I will say, at least I told them the rules, I even signed something agreeing to it, whatever good that is. But anyway, like I say, nobody so far has actually gone off and done rotten things. I had a couple students that seemed pretty dodgy, and as soon as they found out that it was like a lot of work, they sort of wandered off. I should say a few words, I guess, about the grading and such. There's quizzes every week, approximately, and a whole lot of projects, that all adds up to a lot of points with final exam. And as you'll see on first page, you get 90% of the points, you get an A, and 80% is a B, 60% is a C, and so on. You can take this class pass, no pass, which is incorrectly described here as credit, no credit, if you want to, but you have to do it by a certain date, which is I think 3 or 4 weeks out. I mentioned already, you have to obey the law. If you go out and start hacking into other people's networks, you are breaking the law and you are subject to cops locking you up in prison. And even if you tell them I told you to do it, which I'm not, that's not going to save you. The worst you can do is drag me down with you, which is probably not going to work either because I'm explicitly telling you not to do it. So anyway, don't go breaking into anybody else's stuff. The only networks you should ever attack are networks you own or networks you have explicit written permission to hack into, such as in the machines in the lab. They're all there to be hacked into, and therefore don't do anything personal on the machines in the lab. Don't log in your email, don't do online shopping, don't type in a password you love, don't put a copy of something on there and expect to find it there next week. Everything in the computer lab here is subject to arbitrary appalling hackation at any time. You may well come back and find out some other student has erased the hard drive completely and installed some bizarre operating system on it, filled it with Trojans, stolen everything on it, and so on. And that's just people doing their homework. You're not supposed to wipe out another student's work, but it certainly happens fairly often there. So be aware. If you discover that you're late on something because you were almost done and someone wiped out your hard drive, let me know, and I'll extend the deadline. Normally, if you turn things in late, you lose 2 points. If you have a good reason like that, I'll extend the deadline. All right. If you miss a quiz, let me know, send me an email, and I'll fill in that quiz by averaging later quizzes if you have some kind of good reason, like you're sick or you had to work or something. You don't get points for attending, and you don't lose points for not attending, although you'll miss quizzes. So if you have to be absent, just let me know, hopefully in advance, and I'll just fill in the quizzes by averaging later ones, and if appropriate, extend deadlines. If people do cheat on things, you lose points. You can even fund the class by cheating, but I don't have much problem with that in here. It has happened in beginning classes. If anybody has a need of some sort for accessibility, larger pin on the tests or something like that, let me know. And I will try to accommodate anybody. It is common that I get students learning computer skills because they have physical limitations, which is a fine idea. That's kind of why I went into it myself. My wrists started wearing out after enough years being a database analyst. Best you know, I can just teach instead. So that was my accommodation for physical limitation. And running computers is a good job for people with mobility problems. So, but if you need help, let me know. Anyway, are there any questions about anything? Where did the ad codes get to? Who's got them? Okay, good. Everybody get an ad code that wanted one? Well, good. Not too many people wanted them. Good. Some people. Bradley, did you write down your number, or did you just forget to take the sticker?
No, don't worry about it.
Okay, you're good?
I started to write down and realized now.
Okay, good. All right.
I'm already on the way.
Okay, no problem then. All right, so let's just talk about ethical hacking. I should have it in my downloads folder. I'm still getting used to. Oh, one of the projects is extra credit in installing Windows 7 and playing with it. This is Windows 7 beta. Yeah.
What build did you give us on DVD?
The very latest one, 7.0.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. Yep. Well, it's a sensible fellow. And if you already have it, did you get it from Microsoft?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, I was kind enough to spare Microsoft servers. I got it from the source.
Anyway, key needed to install it?
You do need the disk if you want to install it.
No, in the key. No.
There is no key. If you got it from Microsoft, you can maybe get a key, and that would be cool. This one is just a 30-day trial with no key, and you can extend it 3 times for a total of 120 days.
Vista keys, some of the one.
Okay, yeah, and if you go to Microsoft, you can get a key from them. Supposedly, they fixed their server this week. Anyway,
Question.
yeah,
Do you have to have a Windows 7 or can you work on XP?
you can do everything here on XP or even on Windows 2000. I think any XP and Vista and Windows 7, you can do it on any of those. You will need to run VMware, and I'll demonstrate it later. In fact, I'm glad you reminded me. Before I want to start talking, I'm going to start copying one of the. All right, one of my.
Last question about Windows 7. Are you running it as a VM or are you running it as the...
I'm running it right on the machine. When I first installed it, I was afraid of it. I thought it would be horrible to destroy my machine, so I put it in a VM, and it was wonderful. So I put it in a machine I didn't like much, and I gradually went where I put it everywhere, and I now live on it.
But you did get it to run the VM?
It does run in a VM, but you need a special NIC drive. And you'll find that on one of these DVDs, actually, 123A and 123B. We put it on there in case you want to put it in a virtual machine. A VMware virtual machine. It doesn't, the native hardware doesn't work.
Same question.
Yeah.
You had 3 CD, one Windows 7, and you have the other 2 what?
There's Windows 7, and the other 2 are the virtual machines you'll need for the first 2 projects. And I will demonstrate them up here later. That's why I'm starting this slow copy, so it can happen while I do the first lecture. The first project, you take over a machine using Metascope, which is a fantastic tool that should scare you to death. And I will demonstrate it later as soon as I get set up there. I'm looking for my downloads folder. There we go, 123, chapter 1. So, let me talk a bit about the ethical hacking, and should I turn the lights out to make this more visible? What do you think?
Please.
No,
Okay. Yes, no. Well, that's confusing. What happens if I do?
you're sleeping.
Yeah, that's a thought. Wish I could have a better solution for lights in here. You think you're gonna fall asleep?
No, no.
All right. I see a hand waving in the back.
No, no, no.
What's no, no?
We need light.
Too dark
Oh,
for
you
the
need light for
video.
the filming. All right. Well, let me leave it on. We'll see how it goes. They are, by the way, filming this. They're not going to film the students, so if you don't want them filming you, don't worry about it. But we're trying to put this on the website. Put all the lectures up there for the online students and for other people. There are a lot of people imitating this class in Israel and Britain and everywhere else. So it would probably help to have the lectures on there. Anyway, so all right. So the role of an ethical hacker is, I've already summarized it, and there's not that much to it. Ethics have a prominent place in the title of the class just to reassure nervous administrators. But the ethics is really simple. You only attack machines you own, or machines that are done testing under conditions with the permission of the owner. After that, you do all the horrible things to them that a bad guy would do. But you're okay because you have permission. That's all. So ethical hackers are employed by companies to do penetration tests. There was a news article recently saying that this was one of the highest paid jobs, the most exciting jobs, like number 3, to be an ethical hacker. And a lot of truth in it. And a guy, the security officer from Seagate, came to give us a talk last semester. He was just like James Bond. He makes $150 grand. He is dressed very well, brought in a $70,000 bug detector and sniffed the room for bugs and told us about all his excitement fighting crime at Seagate and Kmart. They had their own private police force with their own DNA scanners. They had better stuff than the cops do. They're better funded. They act faster. And he was very excited and felt. I'll try and have him back. Anyway, so a penetration test is when you try to break through security into a company's machines. You're trying to find its weakest link and get in, and the tester explains where they got and how they got there. They don't necessarily solve the problems. A security test and a security audit is a more thorough activity where you make recommendations how to improve the network and you check all their security. So hackers are people with access computers without authorization. It was originally a good thing to be a hacker in the MIT Model Railroad Club, from people who built model railroads out of telephone parts. And the original point of a hacker was to overcome limitations and use equipment to accomplish the job, even if it was the wrong equipment. And but the FBI eventually bought into the media's portrayal of them and declined a crime as hacking. So then it was no longer possible to have hackers be the good guys and crackers be the bad guys. So they invented this new term, ethical hacker. And you could argue that it is not exactly the right word, because there are people who think ethics is making the world better for the glory of God or something. And that is not what I mean by ethics, because that's very unclear. Some people will do things, their personal ethics that totally contradict other people's personal ethics. What we mean here is legal ethics. That's clearly defined. So it's like professional ethics, you obey the law, which may be different than having your personal ethics to further your personal agenda, which you regard as more important than the law, which those are the hacktivists, and the stuff they do is unethical by our terms when they break the law. There are different skill levels of hacking, and this was another concern when I started this class. The first thing I thought when I thought of hacking is people who analyze software, find vulnerabilities, and craft exploits that crash the software and get it. And that is an extremely advanced computer programming activity requiring machine language, and the prerequisites for this course are not appropriate for that. What we're going to make in this class is script kiddies. There's a time when script kiddies were sneered at as idiots that don't even know what they're doing, they just run programs without understanding them. But what's happened in the last 10 or 15 years is the pre-packaged programs that attack machines have gotten so powerful and so good that they are very effective at testing security, and you have to know what you're doing to use them. So even though all you're going to do here is use programs that other people wrote, you can still do a good security test with them, and that's enough to make a couple courses and a certification out of it, so that's what you're going to learn here. If you want to learn how to analyze source code, find the vulnerabilities, and attack programs, you've got to first start over in the CS department and learn some languages like C++ and Java and such, and you've got to learn them very well. And machine language, which is a good thing to do, but it's not what you're going to learn in this class. We're just going to use programs that have already been written by those guys to attack things. We're going to write a couple little scripts using some scripting languages, but nothing very advanced. Another thing to be aware of, which I certainly found true in the past, is that hackers are also a counterculture of their own. And I go to DEF CON every year. I love it. It's the biggest hacker security conference. And it's a whole counterculture, just like people that follow the Grateful Dead or any other strange group of people. They all love this stuff, and they develop their own culture. And you have to have an attitude of investigating things, not believing what you're told, trying to find backwards interesting ways to do things, and trying to understand how things work so you can run them backwards. And you will only succeed in this community if you have the love for it that makes you want to learn this stuff. You have to constantly be up on the news and study the new security vulnerabilities because there's an endless chain of them coming down, and people on the outside just don't understand. Like Linus Torvalds. He wrote Linux, but he does not understand security. He said he thinks it's ridiculous, the security circus of all these people making up attacks and making up defenses and what's wrong with them all. Microsoft didn't understand it at all until recently. Apple has no clue. Apple even said recently they weren't going to bother patching their vulnerabilities. They had a thing called the carpet bombing vulnerability, and when they found out about it, they said, oh, that's extravagant, nobody would ever do that, we're not going to even bother patching it. And the world arose in uproar, and they said, well, all right, we'll patch it, but we don't understand why, which is the way most people do. There's a certain number of people that are sort of troublemakers that naturally think if something's wrong, you should poke at it, see how wrong it is, and then laugh. That's me, that's the hackers. And there's a lot of square people say, well, don't mess with it, it'll be fine. What's wrong with you anyway? So there's a natural two sides to the world there. So people have a collection of hacking tools they use. We're going to use quite a few things here. In previous semesters, we used Ubuntu Linux primarily, and we installed a lot of attack tools on Ubuntu Linux. This time I'm doing less of that. We're just going to use Backtrack for most of our attacks. We use some Linux, but just so you get the basics of Ubuntu Linux. Backtrack is the special distribution of Linux with all the security tools already on it. Far more effective than trying to put them on Ubuntu. And we'll also use all different versions of Windows. But you do develop your tools. You develop your favorite tools, and typically you end up with a laptop or two full of all your goodies. I just took a vacation up north for about a week, and we went to a series of hotels with my sister, and the first thing I would do is go in the hotel room and test their network security. I sent several of them emails explaining to them what they were doing wrong and what they were doing right. One of the more interesting things to analyze. But it just comes natural. Anyway, so the simplest test is a white box model where you're told everything about the network. You get the network diagram, and then you're supposed to break in past the security, which they've explained to you. That's what a network diagram looks like. Your textbook has a few errors in it. In particular, it has a floor plan instead of a network diagram. This is a network diagram, right? You see the servers, you see the routers, you see the switches, and the wires between them. The figure in your book is a floor plan. It shows everything except the network. So, you know, we can't know them all. All right, the black box model is more common, where you don't know the staff supposedly doesn't know you're attacking them, although what the experienced people in the field tell me is they lie. They always tell you, they won't tell the staff, and then they always quietly warn the staff. So one of the most effective things that penetration testers have told me they do is you agree to do a penetration test on June 15, you agree that no one will tell them, and then you do it on June 6. You show up a week and a half early. They don't. That way, they really don't know you're coming. Anyway, but you aren't told about the detail, and then you attack to see how far you can get. There's also a gray box where you have some information, but not all the information about the network. Anyway, almost all the classes in the CNET department here, and I think every class I teach, I think with no exception anymore, is tied to a network certification, an industry certification. I like that, probably because I got burned. As an undergraduate, I took classes from teachers that had gone to sea, and they didn't teach me things they were supposed to. It wasn't until I got to grad school that I discovered that they got omitted important things. So I don't want to do that to you. And so every class is tied to an industry certification that's respected around the world. And so here's one. You should have this level of skill in order to succeed in this class. You should already have had the Network Plus and the Security Plus at this school. That's 106 or 201 and 120. By the way, there's a new one called 106C, which has got a lot of space in it for convergence, which also covers the basics of networking. Those are the two things that happened before this hacking class. And this class and the one after it will give you the CEH certification. By the way, we don't give tests here anymore. That wasn't working out too well. But anyway, Certified Ethical Hacker is a more advanced certification than Security Plus. And if you take 123 and 124, the intention is that will prepare you to be a CEH. I got that myself about a year ago, and it's a good thing to have. Made me feel better. It doesn't take you to the top of hacking, but it takes you halfway up. ICECOM has another one, the OPST test. I can't find an easy way to take that test locally, so I haven't done it yet. The most famous security certificate is the CISSP. Most professionals tell me that you cannot really survive as an independent consultant in security without being a CISSP. But the requirements are very daunting. You must have 5 years of industry experience. You must continue to accumulate certified credits or lose your certification after 3 years. It costs a lot of money to take. I think it's kind of unreasonable for us to get you to that level of community college, and I'm not one yet. But it is a good thing to have. Anyway, the SANS Institute has a lot of information about security, and one thing they have here is the 10 most important vulnerabilities. I think we'll talk about those. The top 20 list we've got there. We'll talk more about that later. Anyway, you should be aware of what the laws restrict you, of the restrictions the laws place on you in your network, in your neighborhood. There are different laws all over the place, but the one way to be safe is to only attack your own machines. That's the best habit. There are places where even owning these tools is illegal, in particular Germany. And I think France, too. Several important websites had to move out of Germany about a year ago, and they passed a law against owning hacking tools. I think this is enormously misguided. You need the good guys to have those tools. And by the way, once you get used to some hacking tools, you will wonder how you're doing it without them. I can't connect the network to find a server or anything without using Wireshark. It's just a natural way to find anything on a network. I don't understand how you get anything done without it. Anyway, cyber crimes are being defined more, and the punishments are being defined more strictly all the time. And a lot of people go to prison. So, like I said, don't abuse these tools. Let's see, I have a pointer here. Here, I have a pointer. Anyway, here's just some examples from a couple of years ago. These guys rented a zombie PC network, computers under remote control. They took over a lot of machines and used them to rent them out to criminals. So he got 6 years in prison for that. 9 years in prison for trying to steal credit card numbers, and he didn't even get the credit card numbers. He still got 9 years in prison. The Spanish hacker got 2 years for bringing down a lot of PCs. And this guy, the British NSA hacker, still fighting extradition years later. He hacked into the National Security Agency. He said he got in because they had machines with remote registry turned on, no administrator password, left on all night unattended. So he got in through one of them, was in there for more than a year, wandering through all the network because his interest was in UFOs. He believed that the government had Area 51 UFO information they were keeping it secret, hidden on NSA machines, and he thought he could find them and expose it to the world. And anyway, he's scared to death to be deported to America. He trying every possible dodge in the book to avoid it because he thinks he will sit with Guantanamo Bay and torture him. Which I can understand him thinking. Anyway, he's still resisting his extradition from Britain. I don't think we've got him extradited here yet, but they are trying vigorously. So if you do mess around with other people's machines, you are asking for trouble, just like robbing a liquor store or a bank. Port scanning is a fairly innocuous activity where you just send a lot of packets to a machine to see what packets it will send back, just to find out what ports on that machine are open for business. I do this all the time. It's generally considered legal. The main tool you use for that is Nmap. Fyodor, the author of Nmap, just reported in his research at DEF CON, he port scanned the entire internet last year. And he wrote a book about it. He publishes the results, he finds out what ports are open on the whole internet, and he said many networks did detect him coming, and they found out who was scanning us, and they said, "Who are you?" And he said, "I'm Fyodor, I'm scanning the network." He said, "Oh, wonderful. Go ahead and scan us. We love you." Ariel used Nmap here. All the networking professionals pretty much use it and know it and love it, and therefore they don't mind being scanned for a purpose like that. Although there are probably some exceptions. But anyway, some people try to claim scanning a network is illegal. One thing about it, though, is if you scan a network too vigorously, you can bring it down, and you'll do that in other projects. You will bring down a network with Nmap. Set up a web server. If you scan it too fast, you flood it and bring it down. Anyway, of course, it's usually not a matter of going to prison, but your internet service provider has an acceptable use policy, and a lot of them forbid a lot of activities, so you have to be careful, watch, and so on. Programs that pretend to be users are often forbidden. City College has a computer usage policy, which is at this link, which restricts what you can do on campus. And the lab over there is isolated from the City College network, and it's pretty much isolated from the internet too. I've got a special router, Kurt, one of my assistants found, where I got high downspeed bandwidth but low upstream. So you can download things in the lab, but you can't send packets out very fast. So you can't attack anybody else from that. Normally you have firewalls to protect you from the world, but in there I've got the network set up to protect the world from you. So you can attack each other, but you can't attack other people from the lab. That's the idea. All right. There are a couple of federal laws that restrict hacking. The Computer Hacking and Intellectual Property Law is one of them. And there's quite a few others, the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, and various others, the Patriot Act. Passes some severe rules on hacking. By the way, you can get life in prison for penetrating a network and using it with depraved indifference to human life, which I don't know of an American example of that, but I do know an example of another country. I think it was Spain. One of the, a 14-year-old kid in Spain found that he could use an infrared remote and control the train tracks on their light rail. And he used it to play with the real trains, like his train set, until he finally made some trains collide at speed. And that seems to me like, if that was in America, he would be a candidate for that, with indifference to the risk to human life that he was causing. All right, so like I say, accessing the computer without permission is illegal. Even logging in, even guessing passwords and getting in is illegal. This is why when you connect to the City College network, you'll see a box that pops up and says, unauthorized use of this network is forbidden. If you aren't really a student, you must leave. There was a time when you would call up servers and the server would say, "Hi, this is the AT&T network. Please log in." And someone actually successfully defended himself in court. Well, it said, "Please log in." So I ran a script and tried 10,000 passwords and logged in. They wanted me in there. And this worked. So now every network opens where they get lost sign. Because then they can successfully claim that you didn't have any business hacking into it. Other things that are obviously illegal. So getting in a computer without permission is illegal. You're just being in there, even if you don't steal files or break it. Installing worms or viruses or spreading them is absolutely illegal. We do play with some malware in the lab, but we don't play with any live viruses in this lab. I thought about it. I was going to have some virus projects, but we don't have any yet. If somebody finds an easy way to write viruses that work, I'm interested in hearing about it. There's a Canadian class where he teaches the students how to write viruses, and they operate in conditions of extreme sterility. I've talked to the students. They have to remove all their iPhones, floppy disks, and everything else. They go in the lab, they do their homework, they can't take anything out. There's no internet connection at all in there, and they write viruses in there, just like anything else. Yeah. If you do that, you can supposedly never get a job at an antivirus company. Symantec and Norton will not hire anybody that has ever written a virus, which strikes me as strange and backwards, but there are persistent rumors floating around that the Symantec and Norton guys will write the viruses. Just leave to buy their software. And therefore they want to be able to say, we never hire anyone who will write viruses. So anyway, it might be better not to teach that class, I'm not sure. Anyway, beyond this, go to this class. Denial of service attacks, we will do a few of those, ways to bring down a network with special attacks that cause it to crash, or just by flooding the network with too much traffic. And if you deny legitimate users access to network resources, that's a crime. And it's fairly easy to do that. There are various ways to do it, just by bringing down a server, flooding a switch. It is easy, by the way, we're doing a penetration test to accidentally bring down a network. So in cases where you're actually doing a penetration test of a live network with business being conducted on, you have to be very cautious. You can't just run all your tools with their default settings. You have to be careful, or you may disrupt the actual business taking place. There are people that try to fight back at the bad guys by punching them back. This keeps coming up. People get so mad about spam. There are people that would just like to see dead bodies hanging at the gates to punish spammers. They seem to get that way about traffic and copy machines. There's just things that frustrate people so much. And so a lot of people think it would be great to just punch all the spammers back. And so Lycos started this. Lycos made an anti-spam screensaver where you would install this screensaver and you could then send a bunch of network packets to known spammers, as long as you were running it. And therefore, they would all be flooded by packets from millions of people running it, and it would bring them down. This became extremely popular, but they had to pull the campaign very quickly because the spammers sent it back to them. It was also arguably illegal what they did. So another one came out, Blue Fraud, in July of 2005. The Blue Fraud was a tool that you could install on your machine, and this one was not just attacking known spammers willy-nilly the way the last one did. This one would read your incoming email, and every time you got a spam email, it would read the company name, look up in a database, go to the company's page, and submit a complaint form automatically on your behalf. For every spam you got, one complaint form would go in, automatically. Of course, the complaint form is several kilobytes of data, and it had the same effect. You can send out a million spam, for sure we would, because you get many, many complaint forms, it's too much traffic, and you're down. This one was so successful that the criminals shut it down. Now, you could argue that it was illegal, and that might have been how it was brought down, but that's not how it happened. This stuff is run by the Russian mafia, and some people tell me that it is actually funded by foreign governments, like the Russian and Chinese government actually fund and train people to create these attacks. I don't know if that's true, but I do know there's a lot of money in it, and a lot of people you really don't want to meet are running these networks, and they will really stop you if you seriously impair their business. And this seriously impaired their business. So what these guys did was they performed a huge denial of service attack against the internet service provider that ran the main servers for the Blue Frog product and brought it down, and they were unable to bring it back up, no matter how much they did at the internet service provider. And they then hacked into the main server and stole the database and stole the list of users. And so they were going to attack those users until the people that ran Blue Frog warned everybody, uninstall it, forget it, don't mess with it, because it's all true. The bad guys have taken over our shit. And this is not a good thing for us, right? This means that there's a crime going on. Spam is a crime, and people fought back in a sort of vigilante way, and it was not the law that shut them down, it was the bad guys riding them with their gangs, blowing them away, shutting them down. So right now, the internet is owned by the bad guys, controlled by the bad guys. And the only law, such as it is how big the gangs of bad guys are. It's sort of like a town controlled by organized crime, which is why we need trained network security people, like you. Go out there, every company is discovering how much they need network security, the situation gets worse and worse, they need more people. There was a call out in 2006 to create a new version of Blue Frog, which would be distributed, working like BitTorrent, so there was no central point for them to attack, no list of owners anywhere, just a cooperative thing. But as far as I can tell, they never finished it. I never heard about it again. It's been a couple years now. It seems like this may resurface someday, but so far it hasn't.
Does this still exist?
No. Blue Frog was only up for a month or two before it got cooperatively taken down, and then they announced they were going to have an open source project to create its replacement, and I never heard about the replacement coming back up. A lot of people would like to do it. In general, there is a group of people that believe you should take direct action to attack people who attack you. This is called offensive security. And there's a very interesting book about it, offensive security, talking about how to attack people. It is unethical, unwise, and illegal to do it because you don't really know who attacked you. And on top of that, when you send an attack to somebody, you have to go through your internet service provider and their internet service provider, and you might break down something between you and them. So this is not any more legal than just carrying a gun and blowing away people who try to mug you and hitting random other people while you're at it. But there are people doing it, and it is certainly interesting to read about to understand how the security works. If you want to stay safe, don't go attacking people just because they attacked you. By the way, a similar related activity, which I really thought about writing into a project here until I realized it was too illegal, is to hack into hackers' networks and steal their stuff. There are a lot of lists of passwords analyzed on the web. You send out spoofing email, phishing attacks. You send out an email saying, someone has compromised your eBay account. You've got to click on this link and log in right away, or we're going to cancel it. Your money will all be lost. So some percentage of people will fall for that. Click on the link and log in, and of course it's not a real eBay login. It goes to some crook who's accumulating names and passwords. So what some of the security people did is they would click on that link deliberately, look at their server, hack into the criminal's server and steal his stuff, because most of those servers aren't secure. Criminals don't think of that. And then you have their list of stolen passwords, which you can investigate. And they were doing things on them like finding out what kind of passwords are people using, how long they are, how secure they are, and things like that. And I thought that sounded like fun, but then I decided it's really illegal. I mean, you can't pull out a bigger gun and mug the mugger and take his money. It's not legal. And you're now in possession of stolen property. It's secondhand stolen property, but on top of that, you're directly messing with organized crime, and someone might come knocking at your door that you really don't want to talk to. So I don't recommend doing it, but it's interesting to read the news articles from other people who do it. All right, anyway, so you should be attacking networks with a contract, and there are some books you can go to get a real contract that people can fill out and sign, asking for a penetration test. Be aware that a security test is something that not everyone will appreciate at all. There are people at the company that are already telling their boss that they're secure, and they are going to be humiliated or perhaps fired by you penetrating. So you want to make sure that you have everything in writing so they can't claim that you did something illegal or something you weren't asked to do. Because you will probably make somebody mad with your security test if you do a good job and get in. And it's superhuman to not have some hole in your network, but you can expect somebody to try to blame it all on you at the security test, so be aware of that. If you want to be a security tester, you have to know a lot. The number one thing is overwhelming technical knowledge. You have to know network and computer technology. You also have to be able to communicate. Often you have a team of several people in order to have these skills. Somebody has to be able to talk to management in terms they can understand, which is a very different skill than being good technically. And you have to understand the laws and have the necessary tools you can use them. Are there any questions about these things? Well, what I want to do is take a break and then demonstrate the first project here. Let's see what time it is. That's not much use. I've got to install this operating system. Okay, there's a primitive clock that works. Okay. Let's pick up, let's take a break till 7.